Well, good morning and welcome back to Nazareth and welcome back to the third week of Nazareth as we make a shift this week, really following the rhythm of the Gospel of Luke that we've been in. Of course, Luke's narrative of Jesus' first Passover pilgrimage to Jerusalem concludes with the following sentence. He says, Jesus went down with them and came to Nazareth. He was obedient to them, of course his parents, and his mother kept all these things in her heart. And then, of course, that very important and famous line that says, as Jesus advanced in wisdom and age and favor before God and man. So what happened after Jesus was found in the temple? Of course, they went back to Nazareth. And, of course, the question there is, what happened when he returned to Nazareth? Well, of course, Jesus grew. He grew up. And of course, we don't have anything specifically written in the scriptures from that moment until he begins his public ministry, either with the wedding of Cana or with the baptism, depending on how you look at it. But what we do know is that the Holy Family returned to Nazareth. And the scriptures say very specifically that there Jesus advanced in wisdom. And he would have done this chronologically as a teenager. So our third week of Nazareth, this week, we're going to focus on Jesus as a teenager as we unpack Luke chapter 2, verse 52, that he advanced in wisdom and age and favor before God and man. And so today we ask, what was his life like as a teenager? Luke tells us that Jesus advanced in age. And more importantly, he says that Jesus advanced in wisdom. Let's first consider the fact that Jesus had to advance in wisdom. It wasn't just there. The word specifically that he advanced in wisdom. If Jesus is the Son of God, I guess the question that we could ask is, didn't he know all of it already? Why did he have to advance in wisdom? The Catechism actually gives us a great quote here. It teaches us that while perfectly divine, Jesus was endowed with a human knowledge. And thus, he could not simply just... we can't assume that he knew everything all by itself. Jesus had to grow in wisdom because he had a human knowledge. And it says, this is specifically why the Son of God could, when he became man, increase in wisdom and in stature and find favor between God and man. And would have to even acquire for himself about the human condition and learn from experience. And that comes from the Catechism number 472. So what we see right there is that because Jesus was fully human and fully man, he would have grown in wisdom. He wouldn't have just known everything about life and the world with coming out of the womb. He would have, just like any teenager, grown in wisdom. So Jesus learned, he was taught, he grew. But he grew in wisdom. That's what the scriptures say. And the question is, what is wisdom? I want to offer two very beautiful quotes from Pope Benedict XVI. It's right there on the blog. You can read it. But if you give me permission today, just to kind of walk you through this beautiful quote together. And he says, we cannot rely solely on the news if we want to understand the world and life. We must be able to remain in silence and meditation, in reflection. We must know how to stop and think. In this way, our mind can find healing from the inevitable wounds of daily life and can go deeper into the events that occur in our lives and in the world. And we can come to knowledge that allows us to evaluate things with new eyes. Love that. So if we slow down a little bit, if we allow ourselves to rest a little bit, then we are able then, upon reflection, to think and to see the world with new eyes. That's the eyes of wisdom. He continues by describing wisdom. He says, whoever thinks with God thinks well, and whoever speaks to God speaks well. They have a valid criteria to judge the things of the world, and they become prudent, wise, and at the same time good. They become strong and courageous with the strength of God, who resists evil and fosters good in the world. So what we see is that wisdom, as Jesus advanced in wisdom, wisdom is not the same as information. And wisdom is not the same as knowledge. Wisdom isn't as much concerned with facts as it is truth. And of course, wisdom comes from the source of truth, which is God. Therefore, much of Jesus' teenage years were filled with learning about life, about the mind of the Father, about wisdom. In today's information age, we find ourselves inundated with information. However, never before has our culture needed wisdom more than it needs information. And the key is the source. Unfortunately, many are undiscerning when it comes to what they believe. For example, many are quick to believe something just because it's written or just because it's on the internet. They assume that just because it's published, it must be true. Or many of us are quick to believe something just because it's on television or in the newspaper. And far too often we assume that just because it's out there for the world to see, that it must be grounded in truth. However, the question is, what's the source? Far too many of us are conforming ourselves to the culture rather than being formed by God so that we can engage with the culture. Wisdom and truth are one. God and truth are one. Therefore, wisdom and God are one. There's no contradiction within truth, nor can truth contradict what God has revealed about himself. So the question for us today is, what influences your mind, your thinking, your opinions? Who's conforming to who? Is God and his truth really forming your opinions about life or morality or what you really believe to be true? Or is the world, the internet, television, media, our philosophy in the United States that you can believe whatever you want, is all of that forming your mind? What's the source of your beliefs about life? And the question for you today, are you more shaped by information or by wisdom? For your prayer today, just encourage you to imagine Jesus as a teenager learning more and more about the mind of the Father as he learned more and more about the Old Testament and how it revealed the Father. Just imagine Jesus learning to love the great Old Testament books, especially even wisdom and Proverbs. So today I want to encourage you to maybe just read chapter 1 of the book of Wisdom. It's in the Old Testament. Find maybe a line or two that really speak to you, that kind of tug at your heart, and just kind of read that 3 or 4 times and just ask yourself, are you more influenced by God or the world? And then I want to encourage you just to close your eyes and enter into one of the hidden scenes of Nazareth. Imagine Joseph teaching Jesus about the Old Testament, or Joseph teaching Jesus about the story of the chosen people. Mary teaching Jesus about his own history. Mary teaching Jesus about prayer. Be with them. Be in the home. Look at Jesus as a teenager. And as you're with them, they turn to you and they ask you, what's on your heart today? And I want you to pray this prayer with me. Jesus, I desire to know you in a deeply personal way. Help me to grow in my relationship with you by desiring wisdom more than I desire information. God bless you.